Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to my regular weekly YouTube live stream, Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related, and I'm prepared for a bombardment of Patrick Bamford questions, which I can answer really easily right now. If you don't know Mikel Antonio, go and buy Mikel Antonio. If you want to come down to about 7 million, I don't mind St. Maximin for a 4-week punt. If you want to look a little bit longer term, perhaps 6 to 7 weeks, come down to Adam Armstrong. Right, that's the Patrick Bamford questions answered. They'll be banned ongoing. Team news. Bamford obviously is out. That's major injury news that I guess will concern FPL managers. Edward Mendy will start for Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel was confirmed. For Manchester City, Pep Guardiola was given nothing away. That means doubts around Laporte, Stones, Zinchenko, Rodri and Gundogan still. Edison Cavani will be in the Manchester United squad. Axel Tuanzebe is ineligible for Aston Villa. John McGinn is cleared to play. Thomas Frank has said 10 of the 11 who beat Wolves will start for Brentford. Thiago and Keita are out for Liverpool. Roberto Firmino's in contention. Trent Alexander-Arnold is back from illness. Jordan Pickford and Luca Dean have both been training. Could be available for Everton for their visit of Norwich. For West Ham, nothing wrong with Antonio. He's fine. He was left out in the week because they deemed this game more important. And that's about it, I think, on the big news. Newcastle got a few players out. Lascelles out to join Callum Wilson till after the international break. Joe Willock is out for Newcastle as well. Marcel will definitely play for Wolves because Ryan Ait-Nouri is out with concussion. Granit Xhaka returns from suspension for Arsenal. Lucas Moura is in training and has a chance of being available. Adam Webster for Brighton not expected back till after the international break. Pascal Gross should play, having played 45 minutes in midweek. That's the main team news. Let's get into the questions. Just after 3 p.m. UK time on Friday the 24th of September. FTLOL podcast says, afternoon James. Apologies if you get this question a lot, but is any striker under 8.5 million worth taking a -4 for Bamford? Already have Antonio and I have Gilmour coming off bench for him. Ooh, -4 depends. What's not helpful and where I get this just to cover Bamford a little bit is we haven't got the information. Like, we've got no update on Rafinha in terms of if he's available or not. Marcelo Bielsa said that of those there were doubts about, he couldn't say any more. So Ayling and Rafinha remain we don't know. Which to me, with it being Leeds, probably means they're probably okay. There's a good chance they'll play, actually. In Bamford's case, we don't know the extent of the injury. If it's 1 week, I can see people thinking, Watford at home next week, I want to keep. I get that. So with that in mind, probably not. I don't like the fact that you've got Gilmour coming off the bench as a first choice substitute. Is there anything else you can move in the squad? Obviously, if you didn't want Bamford long term, but that's part why you've probably gone for him because he's brilliant fixtures, and I get that, and that's why it's a little bit frustrating. I think you've got Antonio, so that's fine. Would I take a -4 for something else? Probably not without the information. I would say probably not. So it's probably a hold. For free transfer, I think I'd move it on. It could easily be one of those, isn't it? He's out this week. Oh, he's out next week. Oh, he's out for 3 weeks. There were some rumours, and I have to say rumours, floating around earlier in the week that he might be out for a month. Now, if that's the case, it's a definite sell, isn't it? Even for a -4, but we don't have the information. Hamish Holmes says, howdy James, hope you've had a good week. How long will Bamford's ankle be pinging for? We have to ban these Bamford questions. Have Liveramento on the bench to cover him, so tempted to hold Bamford for 1 week. Yep, crack on. 333 Marson. Hi James, hope you're well. I have 6 players in 2 games. Rudiger, Lukaku, Cancelo, Fornals, Antonia and Rafinha. Would you play them or try to predict the result by benching the player? No, they're all playable players, to be honest. You make a case that Pablo Fornals maybe isn't, but Rafinha you don't leave out. I was discussing this with Suj this morning about Rudiger. Forget the fact they're playing Man City. They've got the best defence in the league at the moment. You play a Chelsea defender irrespective. I would feel the same about Cancelo. Forget the fixture. He plays every game. You don't leave out Lukaku, of course. You don't leave out Antonio. So, they all play. Essence says, hello James. What do you think of Jotter to Gray this week? I will get rid of Jotter and buy a Chelsea defender next week anyway. So should I move now? My instinct is that Jotter probably starts tomorrow. and we discussed this. I've done a video for advanced tier patrons on Brentford, and they're very good, particularly defensively. So, I mean, I expect Liverpool to go there and win, but I don't expect them to go there and tear them apart. But I think Jotter starts would be my instinct. If you go grey, next week they've got Man United away, and you're probably going to regret that. So, for me, good roll of transfer for me, mate. Will Teeman said, hi, James. Best differential punts for the next 2 weeks before wildcarding game week 8. Thanks. Okay. So, who's got a good cut of fixtures? One name we did discuss on that Patreon podcast we did this morning was Leandro Trossard. I think Brighton actually come out top on the next 3 fixtures on my ticker. So, I think someone like Trossard as a bit of a punt. If money's no object, perhaps Cucurella. Possibly. Everton, if you're steaming in for the one game. Leeds, we don't have the information. To be honest, Harvey Barnes of Leicester. For 2 weeks, Leicester got 2 good fixtures. Perhaps Ryan Bertrand might fit into perhaps budget issues that you've got. Timu Pukki, Everton away, Burnley away is not the worst. So Alan St. Maximin, Watford away, Wolves away. It's decent. Ismail Assar, he's still at differential level, isn't he? But about 10.5% ownership overall. Perhaps someone like Pablo Fornals of West Ham, Aaron Cresswell, Vladimir Soufal, Raul Jimenez, lots of options. As I kind of highlighted at the top, I think St. Maximin, very short term. I don't mind, actually. Don't mind at all. Very, very short term, like maximum 4 weeks, I think. Don't mind that to reconsider before they play Chelsea in game week 10, where there's a bit of a fixture swing for a few other teams. I think below that, Armstrong. The reason I like Armstrong is I know it's Chelsea away next week, but I think he's one that a lot of people will want to attack in game week 8. So if you're sitting on there early, but if you only look for the 2 weeks, I think you look for somewhere else, to be honest. Rory Lynch says, Captain Salah or Ronaldo? Went with Luke Shaw last week and dropped 100k places. Still at 161k although. Ronaldo for me, if you've got both, would be. I'm going with Salah. I'm not going to force in Ronaldo, sticking to my guns on that. The only way I could see that being possible is if something to come out injury-wise that forced my hand, and I don't really see that. I'm probably going with Kieran Tierney first sub this week, so I've got no necessity to force anything. I'll probably be rolling a transfer, though, for and thinking if Rafinha is out, Tierney plays instead. Ronaldo for me. Because of what I've said already about Brentford, I think United are probably likely to go a bit bigger than Liverpool this week. And that's it. Simple as that for me. Amber Redmond said, which correspondence would you pick to have on your pub quiz team? Oh, what a good question, Amber. Love that. Which correspondent... Adam Pritchard 350 really knows his onions. He knows random stuff. Like overseas football, he'd be really good as well. Ted Moore. To be honest, a lot of them, right? Jack Toner, Burnley correspondent. Really good, really knowledgeable. Johnny Pringle knows his onions. They all do. FPL Badger, Norwich correspondent. They all do. Probably easier to say, who wouldn't I? Ricky Saunders. I wouldn't have Ricky. Ain't anything Ricky's worth knowing that I don't already know, I don't think. They're all knowledgeable, is part why they are the correspondents. If I could only take one, I think I'd take Adam, actually. I'd take the Gooner. He knows random shit. I'd take Adam Pritchard. Don't tell him, it'll right inflate his ego. Zambia Zimbabwe says, afternoon James, did Kane look good enough midweek versus Wolves to warrant a transfer in on Sunday for Sky? So I had to laugh just before I started the stream. I opened Sky Sports News, which is always a bad thing to do on the app. Main headline, what's wrong with Kane? Okay, so you didn't watch the game Wednesday night either. Look, you got a big chance. He finished it beautifully. He had another brilliant header, which it basically hit Ruddy and didn't go in. He could have easily had 2 or 3 the other night. He looked fine. As I kept saying about Kane, don't worry about Kane. The problem's Tottenham. The problem's not Harry Kane. The problem's Tottenham. It was better Wednesday night. Kane looked absolutely fine. Kane gets chances. Kane will score goals. There's no issue. If your plan was to buy him in Sky this Sunday, I would stick to it. That was my advice on Wednesday, and nothing feels different following that game. Easton says, sorry for the follow-up. If I sell Jotter next week instead, what midfielders cheaper than him would you recommend? So we're going from game week 7. This one is still Rafinha. if you don't have Rafinha. Jack Harrison. They'd honestly, they'd be the first two on my list next week. Watford, Southampton, Wolves, Norwich. Leeds is 4 from next week. Those would be the first two in my mind. Rafinha, Harrison. And I'd have no problem with recommending a double up, honestly. Will Tiemann says, hi James, best differential punts for the next 2 weeks before wild card. I feel like I've just covered that. Rory Lynch says, I'm just repeating odd questions, and sorry guys. Tanmay Gord says, hello James, what to do with Rafinha with James and Liveramento on the bench? What would you recommend? Keep. That's what I'm doing. I think he'll probably play, and if he doesn't, I've got the cover, and you've got decent coverage with Liveramento. Look, if he's close this week, he's going to be available next week if he's not. That's how it looks. So I think Rafinha is a definite and easy keep, in my opinion, as long as you have some coverage on the bench. Star Classic says, morning, James. Morning, maybe where you are. If you had to pick an MLS team to support, which would it be and why? What a good question. I will say Toronto. And I will say Toronto's because I had my great-grandmother lived in Toronto. So that's why I'd say them. I know that my wife would say Portland Timbers because it's just brilliantly named. Although shout out to the Seattle Sounders. Some brilliantly named teams in America. I would have to say Toronto. And obviously Jermaine Defoe went and played there for a bit as well. Joe Burns says, don't really have a question. Just want to say how much I'm enjoying your guys' content. Much appreciated. Thank you. James Horan says, hi James, hope you're well. How good do you think Ledley King could have been if injuries never happened? Well, think about how good he was with the fact that he never played a single game in his career fit. I've told this story so many times. The injury that blighted Ledley King's career was an injury he picked up on his full debut. He never played 100% fit in his whole career. I think Ledley would not have played his whole career at Tottenham. I think he would have played for a Manchester United or a Barcelona or any top team in Europe. He was good enough to play for anyone. Absolutely. Fabio Capello, listen to me. Fabio Capello knew a good defender when he saw one. And he took Ledley in 2010 when he couldn't train and he couldn't understand it. And Ledley was like, look, just decide if you want to pick me or not. I can't train. It's ridiculous. A freak of a talent. So good. Prabesh Sharma says Ramsdale versus Tottenham or Sanchez versus Palace away. I would go Sanchez. It's very close between the two. I would just go Sanchez because there's a lot of Brighton defensive ownership out there, and if you miss it, it will hurt. Whereas if Ramsdale keeps a clean sheet, it won't affect you quite so badly. 9Tank7 says, hi James, I've played wildcard and don't have Trent. By banking transfers, I can do it after game week 8. When should I pull the trigger? Like a week ago, mate. Lastly, what is the best crisp to put in a sandwich? Ooh, like that. Trent, look, if you're not getting this week, then it's Man City next week, so you're not in an urgent rush to do it. But yeah, game week 8. I don't know if his price dropped last night, but he was close to dropping Trent. I love it. Oh my God, he's a 0.0. He must be a useless asset. Let's sell him. He was sick, guys. He's back. And again, on that video I've done for our patrons on Brentford, there's not many ways to hurt them. One of them is crossing and making them turn to face their own goal, and no one's better at that than Trent. Best crisp to put in a sandwich? Probably salt and vinegar, but I'm going to shout out prawn cocktail, not bad as well. Prawn cocktail ham sandwich. Alright, that, not bad at all. Hamish Holmes says, with Newcastle's injury crisis, worth getting Sarr and or Dennis in for Bamford and or Rafinha. Well, kind of covered this already. Bamford to Dennis. I mean, Dennis probably plays this week. João Pedro's back to returning, and I think that's more likely to affect Dennis than it is to affect Josh King, personally. Because I think King's dropping into kind of false 9 positions, allowing the two wide forwards to go beyond. Which in the short term is really good for Emmanuel Dennis. I'm not sure how long he stays in that team, personally. I wouldn't be going Rafinha to Sarr, personally, unless you could afford to reverse that. If you can afford to reverse the transfers, great. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. Neil Thompson says, afternoon, James. Hope you're well. One quick FPL, if you would, please. Murray's out for Sarr, Rafinha, Pogba, Mount, or Havertz. Happy to go down to save some funds for Chelsea defender from next week. Thanks. Right now, it's got to be Sarr over Rafinha, just because we haven't got the Rafinha information. Last week I didn't have the information. That information arrived to me half hour before the deadline that he would start. I'm not expecting that to happen this week. So Salah. Olivia Roberts says, hi James, with Rafinha, I should ban Rafinha questions as well. With Rafinha and Ayling doubts, would a -4 for Salah and Rudiger be worth it? I don't mind that. I mean, it would look great if Rafinha and Ayling are out. Don't get me wrong. I'd want to make sure I was leaving enough money to go Salah back to Rafinha. For me, the answer is going to be no. As much as we all want to get the Chelsea defensive in, and I fancy them for a clean sheet this week, they are playing Man City at home. What's the best case scenario for Rudiger, really? I know he scored last week. He's not going to score every week. 7? 7.8 is it best case? Nah, not for me. Lewis James says, afternoon James, no questions today, just listening along. Thanks Lewis, hope you're well. George Nibbs says, hi James, what are your thoughts on Chris Wood as a Bamford replacement? 2-week punt, wildcard plan for game week 8, thanks. So, 2-week punt, Leicester away, Norwich at home. I don't think he expects him much this week, but I get it. This time next week, people are looking for 1-week punts. It'd be Chris Wood would be all the rage. I think there's some better ones, personally. As I said, I prefer, even though they've got 2 away games, I probably prefer St. Maximin. Wood's not the sort of player that you ever envisage is going to get a hat-trick, is he? He's ones. Do we think he scores at Leicester? No. Do we think he scores against Norwich? Yes. It's a no for me. I mean, if it's target Norwich, just go for Rondon. Go Rondon this week and go Wood next week if you're on target Norwich. I don't really recommend buying Solomon Rondon, to clarify. John Bailey said, thoughts on fans leaving stadiums early? Depends, right? So when Rudiger scored on Sunday, that's me. I'm done. I'm out. What was it? 91st minute or something? 3-0 down. That's it. It's time to go. The game's finished. Those who leave, we discussed this actually on our Q&A on Monday. There was a group of lads who were older than me, who were sitting in the row in front of me and about 5 seats along on the right. It turned up 10 minutes into the game, disappeared 5 minutes before half time. They returned to their seats in the 56th minute and they left in the 79th. What did you bother coming for? So no, not a fan. I accept it when a game is definitely done. And a game definitely done for me is like 3-0 with less than 5 minutes to go. Even then, I'm not sure I'd leave. But that third goal going in 91st minute, yeah, that's time to get up and go. John MacArthur says, afternoon, James. In Sky, which Chelsea defender to switch to from Torres? Already have Rudiger, but worried about Alonso future starts. Many thanks in advance. I think for me, the preference would still be Azpilicueta in the Sky format. Because of the potential for pass and tears, the potential for him to go back at centre-back. I think whether he plays at centre-back or right wing-back obviously impacts his ability to pick up pass and tears, but he does appear to be first choice one way or the other. He's going to play the majority of the games, it still appears. Alonso looks great at the moment, left wing-back. But I'd be conscious, in Sky with no substitutes, you just have to think a little bit differently. And could it be that after Man City goes, there's a nice run of fixtures for me to integrate Ben Chilwell back in the team? That's the problem. And it's the same problem in FPL as well, but then with FPL, you got the bench a little bit. In Sky, you've got nothing. Nothing to cover you. So you can ill afford to take chances as much in Sky as you would in FPL. So for me, it would be Azpilicueta. As long as that's affordable. I think it should be. Thomas Coleman says, hi James, love the pod. Thank you very much. Alistair Coper, hey mate, who would you go for Salah this week and then Salah and a Chelsea defender next week? Or Gundogan this week and Lukaku and Semedo next week? Wildcard in 8, so only considering next 2 weeks. So you're not going to buy Salah for Brentford, but then you're going to buy Salah versus Man City. I'm not sure this makes sense, mate. I'm not sure this makes sense. It'd have to be the Lukaku option. But why buying Gundogan this week? For 2 weeks, you're buying Gundogan for Chelsea away and Liverpool away. Got to be better options, mate. Sarr, Harrison, so many better options. And then Lukaku and Semedo next week if that's what you want. Fine. Pravesh says, Rudiger versus Liveramento this week. As covered, Rudiger's a no-no for leaving out. Circumstance where I would accept you leaving Rudiger out this week would be if you were going 3 at the back and you had Cancelo, Shaw and Alonso. That's about it. Otherwise he plays, as far as I'm concerned. Patrick Donnelly, hi James, currently sitting on 2 free transfers. Would you bring in Rudiger or Lukaku this game week, meaning buying the other in game week 7? Thanks. Personally, it's difficult to say because I can't see what the rest of your squad is, but Rudiger. Yeah, I'll back Chelsea to win 1-0 tomorrow, personally. I think we can expect it to be low scoring. So I'm going to say Rudiger. It's not to say Rudiger's a better 1 week punt than Lukaku, it's just the way I'd play it, I think. But it doesn't really make sense when you delve into it. Hang on, you can get the 11.6 million forward. I'm not sure it makes sense. I think that's personal bias in me because I do fancy Chelsea for a clean sheet this week. And I think the more sensible thing to do, Patrick, probably is to buy Lukaku. Just get that done, I think. Think of it this way as well. If something goes wrong and you can't buy the other one next week because of injuries or whatever, you're going to definitely have hoped that you had Lukaku there, I think. So with that in mind, yeah, it probably is best to go Lukaku first. Static said, if Bamford is out for a bit, do you think St. Maximin is a good buy? My sub would be Manquillo if I don't make the transfer. I think Manquillo probably plays again for Newcastle, but you can't expect anything from it. I've covered St. Maximin, so I'm going to skip that. Damian Rozalski says, what is the points difference between you and Suj? What are Suj's transfers? Don't know and don't know is the honest answer. I feel like there's maybe 20 points between us. I haven't got a clue. Not a clue. He's got 2 free transfers, and we discussed at length what to do this morning because he kind of knows what he wants to do next week, but it's nothing he really wants to do this week. However, he's got Mason Mount, and that conversation was before Mason Mount was confirmed ruled out. So he's definitely unavailable this week for Chelsea. So I think he'll probably sell Mason Mount and roll the other. I think that's probably what he's going to do. Bivek says, Liveramento, Duffy, Christensen, Marcel, which 2 would you start? I would start Christensen, definitely. Not that I think he's guaranteed to start, but I would start him. And I would probably just go Liveramento over Duffy. I think it's closer this week than it would normally be because Palace have an issue defending set pieces, and Duffy's a beast, isn't he? So I think it's close. But yeah, I would go Christensen and Liveramento personally. Hamish Holmes says, what do you think of a dirt cheap midfield in Sky? Thinking Gallagher, Gilmore and Elianusi. I think, Hamish, if you do that, you're not going to win this game. Is my honest thinking. That midfield's not going to do a lot for you. It's not. You might as well bank that in at maximum 10 points every week, all season. So it's a no. I know what you're thinking is there, Hamish. You want Lukaku, Salah and Ronaldo or being able to move one to Kane easy enough when the time's right and big at the back. I get that. But no, I don't think it's too much given. Elianusi, Walcott's back for Southampton. Stuart Armstrong hasn't started training yet. When he loses his place in the team, which he could well do, what are you going to do? Gilmore, I mean, what is that? You don't even need that for anything for Norwich coverage. No, I'm not keen on that at all, my friend. FPL Invincible says, good afternoon, James. Do you think it is worth to transfer Ben Rama and sell one of Greenwood or Jotter for a -4 hit and playing a wild card in game week 8? Well, I own Greenwood and Jotter, and it hasn't crossed my mind. It wouldn't cross my mind to sell either of them for free. Honestly. Wouldn't cross my mind right now. I need the information. It's far more important for me. And I think probably as it stands, both probably start this game week. It's amazing now. Last week, people saying, should I take a -4 to sell Ben Rama because he had Man United. Now Leeds are decimated. Oh, can I get him back? And they've got Brentford at home, which isn't as easy as it looks all of a sudden. Then it's Everton away, Tottenham at home, Villa away, Liverpool at home, Wolves away, Man City away, Brighton at home, Chelsea at home. It's not that great for West Ham all of a sudden, is it? No, I wouldn't. You'd be so much better rolling a transfer, although if you're taking a -4, I'm guessing you're not, and gaining the extra information. Because the thing is with Greenwood and Jotter, I think we know they're probably going to become problem players. So the more information you've got, the better. My instinct right now is both start this week, and I'll reassess it next week, and one of them will go next week. And my plan is one will go to a 4.5 million midfielder, and Danny Ings will go to Lukaku for 2 free transfers. That's where I'm intend to be at for next week. And I think at the moment it's probably most likely Jotter goes. Just as well because it opens up the possibility of a third Liverpool player for me. And United have potentially depleted Everton afterwards as well. But then I'll be looking to move Greenwood on as well. Christian Perfor said, I saw some FPL content creators, not you, buying Torres to replace Ben Rama last week. Why people are so impatient with players and keep chasing points. But there's nothing wrong with people buying Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres had a brilliant fixture last week. If he played, he might have gone off. If Guardiola had played him, Man City might have won the game. So it's not necessarily points chasing. It's the fact that you've got a mid-price Manchester City midfielder playing OOP up front. My big concern with it always wasn't the points chasing. It was that we didn't have the information on De Bruyne and Phil Foden to know if he was likely to stay in that position. So, but FPL content creators can do whatever they like, Christian. FPL Glasser says, in London today, anywhere good to eat around Tottenham Court Road? But yeah, loads of places, but I can't afford them, mate. Tom Barmer, punt for Pepe, game week 6-12 with Arsenal fixtures improving. Someone asked me this last week and I said I didn't think he'd start. And I think if Granit Xhaka comes back into the Arsenal team on Sunday, then he's the most likely to miss out. They could stay with the same system and it might look good. No, I cannot see that at all. You got Odegaard and Smith Rowe at like 2 million cheaper, more likely to start. You got Saka at 1 million cheaper, more likely to start, or at least 0.5 or so. Don't see that. I don't see that. What are you hoping for? The big explosiveness against Crystal Palace in game week 8. The big explosiveness against Watford at home in between Leicester away and Liverpool away. No, don't see that, mate. Sheila, there's me saying don't buy the Arsenal player before they play Tottenham. He's bound to go big this week now. Sheila says, wildcard last week, have Rafinha as well with Rudiger, Liveramento on the bench. Roll free transfer or Bamford to Antonia. I mean, Bamford to Antonia, yeah, great for a free transfer. But your circumstance where you've got Rudiger, Liveramento and that on the bench, I think because it's Antonia, just get it done. I really wasn't keen on people selling Antonio last week. And those who went Bamford, look, you've been very, very unlucky. I get that. But I really wasn't keen. 1 week, was we massively expecting anything against Manchester United at home anyway? No. It seemed that for me, it was such an obvious hold, personally. Lewis Stapleton, hi James. 17 days before you told us on live stream that you will remove Ings for Timu Pukki for Norwich fixtures. Now you have to keep your word and do the transfers. No, I never said that, mate. Find the clip. Find the clip. Find the clip and I'll consider buying Timu Pukki this week because I never said that. I might have said, oh, I'm considering doing that. I never said I'm going to do that. There's literally no chance I said I'm going to buy Timu Pukki. None. If you can find the clip, I'll post it for everyone to see. Christopher Stone said, if Phillips plays centre-back, how will that impact Leeds? Think he played there before and was probably better than some of the Regally centre-backs. Is Regally a word? Never heard of it. He possibly is, but he's also their best holding midfield player. He's not good for Leeds to be losing Phillips in that area. That's a certainty. They will be much better off if he can play centre-back. So look, if Ayling's fit, Ayling and Cooper will play. And I have a suspicion that Ayling will play. Bielsa hasn't ruled him out. Remember, this is a player who didn't miss a minute all of last season. But if they can patch him up, he'll play. Phillips may well improve them at centre-back, but the hole in midfield with the likes of Soucek and Rice in that area, you don't want to lose Calvin Phillips from now, so it wouldn't affect him in a good way overall. Dave Wilcox says, afternoon James, I've got Rafinha, Ayling and want to roll a sub, but only White and Gilmour on bench. Too much of a risk, someone else doesn't play, move for Alonso this week. No, I think I'd probably leave that. As I keep saying, and I can only tell you my opinion, and I don't work for Leeds, I don't have any ITK, my sneaky suspicion would be that both will play. A-Man says, hi James, with Burnley and Palace in the next two ahead of possible wildcard game week 8, is Harvey Barnes going under the radar? Going under the radar, he's still in my bloody team, A-Man. Yeah, I don't mind him for a 2-week punt. At all, actually. Leicester changed system at Brighton last week, played a 4-3-3. Maddison played higher up. Samari came into the team in midfield. I wonder if Maddison goes back and plays his position this week and Iheanacho might come into the team. And they play a front three of Vardy, Iheanacho and Barnes. I think that's a possibility. If they do, that could be quite exciting. No guarantee that they will, but I think it's a possibility. Yeah, if it's 2 weeks and people look at a wild card in 8, you do much worse than Harvey Barnes. Good fixture this weekend. He's got to return soon. Probably beat as soon as I sell him, no doubt. Gary Speak, my rank is 7,207. Very good. Why FPL content creators never consider Neil Maupay as an asset? Maupay has 4 goals so far. Same like Antonio. Thank God I have him in my team along with Antonio and Ronaldo. Thanks for the amazing insight, Gary. Cheers for that. FPL Twiggy, hello mate. Dennis or Ben Rama for my 11th man. I would play Ben Rama. There you go. So we've got someone thinking of leaving him on the bench and other people thinking of bringing him in for -4s. Yeah, I'll go Ben Rama because of the fixture. Dennis is one that is a forward. I think it's acceptable to leave out because he's a wide forward. And remember, his goal is one less than Ben Rama's. And there's a potential for a clean sheet point for Ben Rama as well. So Ben Rama. Cherie MC, worth -4 to swap Bamford for Antonio. Marcel would play for Bamford if not hit. Fearing not having Antonio again. If you fear it, Cherie, pull the trigger. Kumar says, love your show. Rafinha, Tony, Torres out for Saar, Gallagher and Antonio. For a -8, a good idea. It's a decent -8. I'm not sure you'll get all your points back this week, particularly if Rafinha stays fit. And what do you do if Rafinha's fit and you want to go back next week? I think you've got Saar playing Rafinha next week. I'm going to say to that, Kumar, if it allows enough money to go Saar back to Rafinha next week, I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. Prabesh says, I am uncertain on whether to go for Cancelo or Alonso. Who is viable long-term option? It's like, how long's a piece of string? Marcus Alonso is not viable as a long-term option until Ben Chilwell is 100% going to be well out of the picture. That's it. Cancelo. I mean, we're buying now. Chelsea away, Liverpool away. Brilliant player, but it's not the right time to buy, is it? If you had to buy one now, this week, I'd say Alonso. But the one I'm more likely to buy in a couple of weeks is Cancelo. Sagnik says, I've done Bamford replacements, mate. I've been through the options. FPL Invincible. I'm sorry, one more, James. One defender to play with these three. White, Liveramento, Semedo. Don't expect anything from any of them, but go Liveramento is what I would go. Alfredo says Calvert-Lewin and Antonio to Richarlison and Chris Wood. Is this a question, mate? Because you haven't put a question mark, that would be helpful. Sanik says, should we go for any 8 to 11 million midfielder on wildcard? At the moment, no. There's no justification for it. Unless you particularly want Kai Havertz, who I think will play up front tomorrow. I think with Mason Mount out, I think Chelsea might go with a 3-5-2, the system they played in the second half at Tottenham, which would mean Kante coming in for Mount and Havertz going really high. I wouldn't expect Havertz to play more than 70 minutes or so, particularly if Chelsea are winning the game. If they're losing, he's probably more likely to stay on. If they're winning the game, I think they'll utilise Werner and Lukaku together late in the game. I think this might be the way. It's the way I've anticipated he's going to finish the game, but with Mount out, it may well be the way he starts the game now too. Cool. That's to give them greater domination in midfield. And it also allows support for Lukaku, as in a real out-and-out partner. Javier says, give brief description on which 5.5 to 6.5 million forwards are the best value moving forward. Thanks. If I had to buy someone in that value right now, I'd buy Adam Armstrong, because of Southampton's very good run from game week 8. It's a little bit early, but the fixture this week is okay, Wolves. They've been good, Wolves, but they weren't great last week. They weren't brilliant in midweek. And defensively, they're, ironically, against some of the weaker sides, they're not going to show up great, I don't think. So Adam Armstrong would be the one I'd go for. St. Maximin, I feel like, is above that, I want to say now. Maybe 6.6. I don't think falls into that category. Definitely be Armstrong for me. Would be the way I'd go. Andy P said, hi James, great stream as always, an interesting stream on the state of Derby, thank you. Talking Sky, I'm sat with both Harrison and Rafinha, stick or twist, got 0.9 in the bank. You don't need both. The thing is though, Harrison's definitely fit, so look, the game's Saturday, so you don't make a move till Sunday basically, would be my advice. Don't make a move till Sunday and then consider your options. Is an Arsenal option for one of the two players worth it on Sunday? James Ward-Prowse, possibly. There's a few you can look at for Sunday, but keep the both for Saturday, Andy. Neil Thompson also with a Sky question. If Rodri is not fit, any ideas on best way to go? I have Rafinha, Tielemans, Gallagher. I could go to an extra defender, double up on Chelsea or Liverpool. I would have 9.2 million total funds. Thanks. So, obviously, City the early kickoff, so you'll get to see the team and you can make decision-making from there. The thing is, though, with a player like Rodri, what did you get him in for? His consistency, right? Which lasts throughout a whole season. You're not. What are you massively expecting from Rodri at Chelsea tomorrow? 5 points, passing tiers. I'm not convinced that selling's the right idea, and he's only doubtful. So it might be better just to keep your powder dry at the moment, Neil. To be very honest, particularly if you're unsure, if you know where you want to go, fine. With the 4 in midfield, I'd want to move the money defensively personally, and you could take your pick from a few Chelsea players having got the team. Seamus Hart says, with the lack of good options and having a decent bench, is it sensible to just bench Brentford for 2 weeks until either he or Calvert-Lewin comes back? I feel I'm wasting a transfer every week on a striker. Well, here's a solution for you, Seamus. Buy a 4.5 million defender, 4.5 million forward, and you'll stop wasting transfers on forwards, because then you'll be stuck. Pushcast says, afternoon, James. How do you assess Brentford's defence versus Liverpool? They do look solid at home, but play a high line if I'm not wrong. But they like to retreat to the penalty area. The space is in between the wide centre halves and the wing backs generally, which is good news for Salah and Mane if they play tomorrow. But in kind of more controlled possession phases, they go deep. They really go into a flat 5 at the back and make it, and the bank of 3 in front, and they kind of let the fullbacks have the balls. It could be good news for Trent tomorrow as well. They are difficult to break through. I've done a lot of analysis for the patrons on Brentford this week, and my conclusion from it is that they are probably better than I'm giving credit at the moment. And I think Liverpool go there and win tomorrow. I think that's natural to think that. I don't expect them to go there and batter them though. Not at all. But Salah, I did highlight a clip. I highlighted for the patrons some clips of Pepe versus Brentford on the opening day and compared some of the things that Pepe did that night with what we might be able to expect from Salah tomorrow. So there's definitely possibility for Salah particularly, I think, to do well. Dale Hall said, would you take a hit for a City defender? As I have James and it's got a 0-0 all over it. No, I would not take a hit for that. Atul Balaji says, hey James, which one would you bench of Reece James, Semedo, Gallagher? Semedo for me. Noor Zari, is Ronaldo a bad signing for Man United in the long run? As a team in transition, they can't build on a 36-year-old selfish player. More nostalgia than actual football planning. Better fit in a City Chelsea. I'm going to stick to my guns on what happened before, and it is that Cristiano Ronaldo was going to Manchester City. Manchester United got wind that he was going to Manchester City and decided to get involved. Otherwise, if City hadn't gone for Ronaldo, United wouldn't have gone for Ronaldo. And he'd pre at Juventus most likely. That's the reality. Until Ronaldo kind of forced it out because City became a available possibility for him. And the only 2 teams, once PSG had bought Messi, that were on the table were the 2 Manchester clubs, basically. And he was prepared to go to City. I don't think of it as some like great homecoming. He was going to go to City. Then United got involved, and then obviously at that point he's going to go back to United. I think United took the opportunity to buy a great goal scorer. Does it work for them? Does it make their team better? Of course, listen, having Cristiano Ronaldo can't make you worse. There are certain things in terms of the fact that United are strong counter-attacking, which actually aids to having Ronaldo, because they've not been a kind of press you in your face team in the big matches anyway. They've got so many good players that are going to dominate a lot of games in any case. And Ronaldo might be the difference between last year, they lost at home to Tottenham, they lost at home to Arsenal, they lost at home to Sheffield United, they lost at home to Crystal Palace. Ronaldo, that 12-point difference is the title. And Ronaldo might be the difference in that. So I don't think we can say it as a bad signing. I understand the question in terms of did they need him and stuff. No, they didn't. They didn't. But the opportunity was there to get one of the greatest footballers they ever lived. And I don't blame them on taking it, particularly with the emotional attachment to it. By the way, he's made a very successful career being quite selfish. Garlic25, afternoon James, what you think of Chelsea double defence of James and Aspi? Feel like one always plays, often both. We'll be selling Ronaldo for Lukaku in next few weeks. Thanks, good luck, appreciate it. So which one of them played against Aston Villa? Was it Callum Hudson-Odoi and Trevor Chalobah? So one of them doesn't always play. But I understand the theory, but nah. I'm not keen. Not keen, personally. I would just prefer, if you're going to do that, just go Rudiger and Azpilicueta. Rudiger and James. Would much prefer you to go down that route. Thomas McStay. Hi, James. Best, or if you're going to do it, fine, but don't do it for that reason, is what I'd say. Do it because you think Azpilicueta is going to play centre-back and James is going to play wing-back. I don't think James starts tomorrow. I think it'd be same back 5 that played at Tottenham. Thomas McStay says, hi James, best 1 week punt for game week 7 wildcarders. Either a striker sub 6.5 million or a defender 5 million and under. Defender 5 million and under, I'm going to say Ryan Bertrand of Leicester. And 6.5 million under striker, I'm going to stick to what I was saying. Adam Armstrong, home to Wolves, I think he's decent. To be honest, if it's just literal 1 week and you're wild card in 7, I would give strong consideration to Rondon. And I think he's literally for that. Wild carders in 7, Rondon. I think if I 1 week wild card, consider Rondon. I think I'd still go Armstrong, I think, personally. Dennis is another. Or Josh King for 1 week, don't mind. I think I'd go Armstrong. Adash says, hi James, I was planning to roll transfer, but potential injuries to Ayling and Rafinha, is it better to get Liveramento for Ayling, Amati for better squad? Thanks. I mean, if you can get Liveramento for Amati, yeah, just get it done, mate. Laxman says, should I play Rafinha or Pepe for the final spot in my starting 11? Rafinha, mate. We don't bench Rafinha. Pushkar says, TAA or Salah, the more glaring transfer to be bought in this game week if I can only afford one. Well, if you don't buy Salah, who's your captain? If the answer is Ronaldo to that, then the answer to your question is TAA. Marcus Nelson, it's always going to be start Rudiger for me, mate. Ethan says, hi James, if you had to bench one of the 3, Rudiger, Tony or Rafinha? I'd bench Rudiger. It's the right answer. I honestly, Tony is not a leave out in any fixture for me. He's the talisman, he's the penalty taker, and Rafinha also is not really a leave out. And Rudiger does have a bloody tough fixture. So you've got me there on one. That is a rare case where I'd say leave Rudiger out. But I would throw back to your question, Ethan. Name me the 3 defenders that you're going to play instead of Rudiger. DM me on Twitter that afterwards, because I bet I would pick Rudiger over one of them 3 defenders. I'm the dude. News on Lamptey. I want to swap in with Williams next week. Also thoughts on Kovacic at 5.1. Kovacic not an option. Could easily be. Kante's back available. So if they do decide to stick with a 3-4-2-1, Kante and Jorginho as a first choice. I do think Kovacic stays in the team this week. So as I said, I think they'll go 3-5-2. Lamptey is a no. He's a no. They're going to take it very carefully with him. Don't expect him to start at Crystal Palace Monday night. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even start against Arsenal next week. I think they'll possibly be looking at starting him after the international break. He's where I'd be at with that. Lamptey's not an option yet. Lincoln begs, hey mate, unsure what to do with Brentford. Next question. Sheree MC. Thanks for your question, Lincoln. Sheree MC says, hello James. What your opinion on Kovacic? I already have James, can't get Rudiger. It's just covered, Sheree. FPL Phenom, any rumours on Brentford injury length, James? I heard a rumour early in the week that it might be a month, and it was only a rumour. That rumour seems to have gone quiet since. Don't go with rumours. FPL Twiggy. Sorry, mate. One more question if allowed. What if I say no? With a bench of Foster, Ben Rama, White and Liveramento, considering using bench boost, your thoughts? Thanks. I'll tell you what, there's worse ones you'll have than that. At least you've got the playing goalkeeper, it looks like, as well. I'm going to say no, because I think there's better options down the line. And if you're asking me to estimate it, like I would back Newcastle, Tottenham and Wolves all to score this week. So then you're looking at 6 from those. Then you really need a 10-pointer plus from Ben Rama. So I'm going to say no, personally. But it's not awful. If you really feel it, then fine. But there'll be better opportunities, I'm sure. You may even find there's better opportunities come up now that if Foster keeps his place in goal for Watford. Although, admittedly, that's probably not going to come up for a while. Possibly game week 10, depending on the makeup of the rest of your team. Miena says, would you take a -4 to replace Marcel for Rudiger? Which way round is that? Is that Marcel in for Rudiger or Rudiger in for Marcel? Because it's not Marcel in for Rudiger, surely. So I'm going to guess it's points chasing. It's Rudiger in for Marcel. No, I wouldn't take the -4 for it. Would you get Marcel in for the first place? Oh yeah, Wolves got 11 great fixtures. Oh yeah, you're 2 into them. They had a bad day last week. Chris Briggs says, thoughts on Adam Armstrong on a longer term pick with benching him next week if I got him in. Again, I've discussed him quite a bit, Chris. I hope I've already covered it for you. Prabesh says, Salah or Antonia for captaincy. I have not got Ronaldo. Will I own both? And I will be going with Mo Salah. Seamus says, hi James, looking to move towards 5 million plus defenders. Which of Duffy or Liveramento would be better to keep long term as the sub defender? Liveramento by miles. I don't think Duffy stays in that team forever. Burns fit. Webster's going to be back after the international break. Trust me, 100% in a back four, first choice is Duncan Webster. And that's what they're playing at the moment now as a back four. Back three, Duffy's got a better chance, but he's also competing with Burn and Veltman. Remember Tariq Lamptey to come back possibly after the break. Possibly means Veltman moving inside. I mean, that's such a straightforward one, Seamus. Easton says, sorry James, but in response to your answer about Jotter to Gray this week, what if I am able to bench Gray in weeks with tough fixtures? Seems like a lot of money to bench, mate. When you benching him, Man United away next week. Don't think you want to bench him for West Ham at home. You want to bench him for Watford at home. You want to bench him for Wolves away, Tottenham at home. What are you benching him in? 7 and 12 maybe? No, doesn't make a difference, mate. FPL Phenom, give up football or beer? It's very straightforward, mate. Give up beer without hesitation, mate. No problem. I don't drink that much anymore. I realise I'm putting on weight, but it's not because of beer, it's because of food. The food and lack of exercise. Sitting in front of a computer working too much. Amber Redmond says, do you think other clubs will follow Bolton's great stance on gambling? Good question, Amber. I'm pleased someone's asked that. So Bolton announced last night that they're not going to have any on-site football odds available to anyone. Most clubs have a partnership with a brand. They're not going to do that. And they won't include sponsorship on shirts, sleeves, training kit, whatever. They're not going to do it anymore. They've come out openly said that. It's a great step. The problem is, and I tweeted this last night, Amber, as I'm sure you're probably aware, the problem is there are so many clubs, particularly in the Championship at the moment, who are so dependent on the money that the gambling companies give them. And if gambling on football shirts is banned, which is something that the government are looking into, and it would be good for our future generations, in my opinion, if it was, are new sponsors going to offer the same amount of money? The answer is probably no. And that's why these clubs take the money. It's because they offer the most money. Oh, it's not all we want to be associated with gambling companies. The gambling companies offer the most money. The clubs need the money. It's a vicious cycle. So it's not easy to eradicate. I think it's easier, Amber, to eradicate at League 1, League 2 level, which obviously is where Bolton are at the moment. The Championship is a big problem. And to be honest, so is much of the Premier League as well. But in the Premier League, the clubs will make the money via other sponsors in the same way. I'm not convinced it's the same way in the Championship. So it's a difficult one. But the clubs should start making plans, because there's every chance that legislation will be brought in that at some point bans the advertisement of gambling companies on football shirts. It's a possibility. I think we'll be revisiting this in a podcast at some point soon. Harendra says, would you bring Antonia in on a -4? I worry about injury. Do you remember that with Danny Ings 2 years ago? Every week he's made of glass, all that shit. He kept scoring every week. FPL telling Josh says, hi James, sorry if questions is repeated, my internet is playing up. I have 2 free transfers this week, so need to use one. Would you do Torres or Rafinha to Salah? 2-week punters, wildcard in 8. Yes, I would do Torres to Salah for a free transfer. Fine. Jammy Jim says, afternoon James. FPL question, who should I sell to bring in Antonia? Was thinking Ings, but after Man U his fixtures improve. I also have Jimenez, who I've only just bought, but is already concerning. It would be Ings, mate. I mean, you say it gets better, does it? Tottenham away in 7, Wolves at home in 8, Arsenal away in 9, West Ham at home in 10. Then there's a really nice free fixtures. Southampton, Brighton, Palace. It must be said Brighton's at home and the other 2 are away. Then they've got City, Leicester, Liverpool. Does it get better? I'm not convinced it does. I mean, for Danny Ings, that period of 7 to 13 is reasonable, in fairness, but it's no more reasonable than Jimenez's. I get what you're saying, but Jimenez needs that first goal. He very nearly got it late on in that Brentford game, so it would be Ings. It would be Ings to sell, I think. Remember as well, Jimenez Newcastle at home next week as well. One on Don. Sorry, don't know if it's already been asked, but would you say it's worth St. Maximin in with Calvert-Lewin and Bamford injured, need a third striker, or leave St. Maximin and play 2 up top? That question has really confused me. But is Saint Maximin worth it? I think for short term, it's a very reasonable pick. Wayne S, great show, James. Armstrong or Pookie? I guess I'm well behind on the questions. Armstrong, very clear. Denny Kaka, I have Mount. What to do with him? It depends on the rest of your squad, but I think in most cases it's a sell. The problem is the first person to suggest would be Rafinha, and you haven't got the information. So if you've got a strong bench, listen, there's a good chance you may want Mason Mount back next week. But I also think he could be awkward. He's not under consideration for me to buy next week, I don't think, as it stands. It's not. And that was always the original plan was, okay, yeah, Rudiger, Mount, Lukaku, free Chelsea. And I'm nowhere near that thought process at the moment to get Mason Mount, I don't think. But if you've got a strong bench, look, you wouldn't have expected much this week. It's kind of similar to the Antonia situation last week. You might be well off taking a breather and gaining some information. Torbjorn says, thoughts on Son as an asset going forward? Excuse me, Sonny get returns. I think he could do very well in game week 7 and 8, actually. Then there's a tougher run of fixtures. He's just not quite justifiable, the money at the moment, because you can't see Tottenham going off. I would say Heung-min Son becomes a real big conversation point again around about sort of game week 11, 12. We'll talk about him a lot more, but until then, I think he's probably off the table. For anyone who was looking to wildcard in game week 9, you could do worse. But what are you doing? You're selling Bruno to Son to find a little bit of money. You probably want to find more, don't you? So it's just not really on the table at the moment for Sonny. But very capable. Look, if he stays fit, he'll get in excess of 200 points again. Be so consistent. Lincoln begs another follow-up question. With Brentford, I could hold him and transfer Ayling to Liveramento. Doesn't sound like a question, my friend. Sounds like a statement. Neil Thompson, would you play Sarr for Wolves or Begovic for Everton? I play Begovic. I'm going to go Foster. I'm going to go Foster over Sarr, I think. So I think Begovic, you've got to... I mean, I would listen to yesterday's Clash of the Correspondents. And it's worth saying as well, we do think Jordan Pickford's probably going to be fit. But look, you could always take the chance, couldn't you? Begovic, put him in goal. If Pickford plays, fine, you've got Sarr coming. That's probably the way I'd treat it. Dan Lyons says, how do you feel about Mount for Chelsea's run? We've just covered. Seamus Hart says, 10 minutes on the enigma that is Tanguy and Ndombele, please. I haven't got that long, unfortunately, but covered him a lot on our Tuesday Patreon podcast. A lot. About the key to everything that we're about to do is can Nuno get it out of him. It was good to see he played 90 minutes the other night, and it was quite surprising that he played, considering he did an hour against Chelsea. He did 75 minutes in Rennes last Thursday as well, so that's good. That's putting the pressure on him to get his fitness levels up, and now he'll feel the benefit of that. He's 4 days into Arsenal. I'm going to guess he probably plays on Sunday now. The problem is Tanguy, and this is what I detail in this podcast. Tottenham are so much better with Ndombele in the team in terms of on the ball. He can carry the ball. He's a good passer. He can give and go. He's a difficult player to pressure. So if he's in possession, he can hold people off. Really good player. He doesn't press, although admittedly the goal the other night kind of came from it, but actually it was a loose touch that he then ended up blocking. So Tottenham become worse without the ball. So I would rather be better with the ball and compensate somewhere else defensively to enable him to be in the team. I think that's what we need to do at the moment. But it's up to Tanguy. Tanguy and Ndombele has the ability to be one of the best midfielders. Probably not just in this country, but further afield as well. He has everything. What he needs is his. And I don't think it's that he doesn't care. I think there's been a mental block on him sometimes where perhaps he doubts his own ability or something. Fitness has been an issue. He's got to do the business now. This will be his 4th manager. And the last 3 were no-goes for him. It looks so far that the 4th one would be. But he didn't leave in the transfer window. He's still there. We need the creative player. He's effectively it. And the fact that we're now playing 3 in midfield rather than a 2 should benefit him. It should benefit him. I want him to play, but it's up to him. We can't keep having this player who plays really well against Chelsea last Sunday for 45 minutes and then disappears in the first 15 minutes of the second half and then gets substituted. There's no point. If he's going to be that player, we might as well use him in the last half hour of games. But let's give him a chance for the fitness. There's a few games for him to prove himself, and I really, really hope he does. because he's got all the tools to be a top player. Cyrus Bernard says, what do you think of left wing back Cucurella at Brighton? Looked good against Leicester. Yeah, I just don't think, like, if you're asking from an FPL perspective, like, you're not going to pay that money at the moment. You've got Lamptey back in a couple of weeks. You've got Duffy at the moment. He's playing at 4.2. I wouldn't pick him over Dunk, personally. But yeah, does look a good player. And I think he's more of a wing back than a full back. So he's certainly a player to watch. He's certainly impressed in the first few games for Brighton. Cheese says, how do you think Ronaldo will do over the tougher fixtures? 1 in 2. I'll just sum it up like that. I think it'll be a 1 in 2, generally speaking. Zambia Zimbabwe says, thanks James. Thoughts on Torres to Alonso tomorrow in Sky? If Torres on the bench, Alonso is starting. Final question. Favourite team to look out for in the EFL outside of the Prem? Bolton are fab. I don't mind the Torres to Alonso move. I don't mind it. Just, you're going to be leaving money spare as well. My recommendation off the back of that transfer is try and leave it spare for a little bit so you can fix if Alonso suddenly becomes a problem. Team I look for outside the Prem. I wouldn't say there is one. I guess London sides, so like Leyton Orient, stuff like that maybe. But I couldn't even tell you how they were doing this season, to tell you the truth. There isn't anyone that I specifically look out for. And we'll finish with my Leicester correspondent, Aaron Lagor, has arrived in the chat. He says, hey mate, do you think Ricardo Pereira is a good pick for this week? Only joking. Looks like I got off at the right time, didn't I, Aaron? I was lucky to get off him last week, considering he played, but it looks like the transfer worked out. I think Ricardo Pereira is a great pick for this week. But if I was free hitting, I'd probably go Castagna as well to make sure I had one of them. Thanks, guys. I'll leave it there. Deadline stream will be 10 a.m. UK time tomorrow. Apologies to those whose questions I haven't got to. If you'd like to screenshot your question in the chat and DM it to me on Twitter before the end of today, I will get back to you before I go to bed tonight. That is a promise. Next week's content will be Monday will be Game Week 6 review, obviously. Tuesday will be People's Poll podcast. We'll confirm the choice of topics probably on Sunday, I would have thought. Although I'm going to Arsenal on Sunday for the derby, so I might be a bit preoccupied, therefore it might be Monday. Wednesday will be Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday's Clash of the Correspondents is Tottenham versus Aston Villa. With Ricky Saunders, Lee Jackson. The plan will be to stream at the same time next week, 3 p.m. UK time. It's a little bit up in the air at the moment because of some issues of childminding for my son. But it'll probably be the same time. And then Deadline is next Saturday for Game Week 6 as well. Patreon podcast next week. Monday will be our Q&A for intermediate tiers and above. Tuesday will be our UEFA Champions League preview, including a look at UCL Fantasy for Game Week 2. Wednesday will be Tottenham. Thursday will be a quiz. Friday will be our Game Week 7 preview. And there's daily videos for advanced tier patrons as well. But probably recommend at this stage 6 or 7 days before the end of the month. Probably wait for the 1st of October, which I believe is next Friday. So we can talk about it on the Ask James stream next week. Thanks as ever for your support, everyone. Good luck for the game week, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music, please, man child.